Hello everybody, and welcome to a chat from the engineering desk. Today we're going to be talking about soldering and breaking it down into something simple. So what I've got here is I've set up two pieces of wire with the ends stripped and just held against one another, and we're going to talk about how you heat it, how you apply the solder, what things you should do and what things you shouldn't do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the joint hot, which means having cleaned the soldering iron's tip, you wet it, you apply it to the wire and you start heating. When you see that the solder on the soldering iron tip begins to bond to the copper, start feeding in your solder. You always feed the solder into the joint. The solder you never feed it into the soldering iron, because once the solder is hot, things happen quite quickly. There's oxidation that happens and the flux burns off. So you ruin that action of feeding the solder onto the tip. So I'm going to grab my iron here, some solder. So over here I've put some solder onto my tip. Now I'm applying it to the wire. See there, the wire's now got solder stuck to it. So what I'm going to do, keep adding heat, and now I'm going to flow the solder into the joint like that. Okay, and then I'll leave it. That's it, the joint is complete. So now turning that around, we can see that it flowed reasonably well. I got most of it, but I need to have spent a little bit more time keeping the heat on and flowing a bit more solder on to get that area soldered as well. It's not a bad joint, but it's incomplete. So once again, wet the iron a bit, apply heat to the joint, okay, my joint is separated. That's the other tricky thing about soldering, is the joint's going to get hot, so you can't hold it. So you need to support it in some way so that it holds still and your hands are free to do the soldering. So here we go again. Now at this stage, while it's cooling, you want to keep it still, because you move it, you're going to make the joint weak and then it's going to fail. So taking it apart, there's our completed joint. That's a good joint. Now the same thing applies to PC board soldering. What you're going to do is Let's get an example. I don't have something with raw components here, but regardless, you're going to be applying heat to the joint. Say this is your component over here. You're going to be applying heat over here, and then you're going to feed the solder in so that it flows through the joint. Keep the heat on till it's finished flowing, and then you take the heat away, and you don't disturb it till it's cooled down. You also don't blow on the joint to cool it down, just leave it, and that's your soldering complete. So I hope this was informative when it comes to soldering. Maybe debunk some myths and mysteries. Was useful. Helps you guys who are learning to solder or already soldering and battling a bit with it. For the rest, have an awesome day further, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Cheers.